But growing up around here, where'd you go to high school?
So, well, I claim that I'm from here, but we moved here, lived here. This is kind of like my new beginning from my past life. Obviously, that I've shared on my Instagram and everything. But I grew up in Asheville, North Carolina.
Okay.
So I went to a little 2A school, North Henderson High School, and that's actually where my wife went to. So we grew up, and then here we are. So
gotcha, nice. And then from there to here, just culturally different at all? I mean, size wise, I might have been a little bit.
Yeah. So it's in Asheville, North Carolina, but it's right outside Asheville. It's Hendersonville, North Carolina, and it's different. It's a lot more mom and pop stores, country. Here's a lot different culturally. People, you got tattoos, you got piercings, you got just a lot of people doing a lot of different type vibe and stuff. And in Hendersonville, it's just the stores are closing down to go to the football games, and everybody's in everybody's business. So it's a cool, friendly environment, but it's also everybody also knows everything about you. So it was really cool for me to really get moved out here, come to Louisville, and really experience a lot of different cultures, a lot of different people that you're not used to seeing in some small town like that. So it gives you a whole different mindset when it comes to really not judging a book, by its cover before you really get to truly know somebody. So that's what I really love about Louisville is that there's tons of different people, but everybody has something to offer. So
yeah. And at that point, were you in the world of fitness at all? Were you thinking about it?
Okay. I was, yeah. Not like I am with bodybuilding now. I've always been into working out, and I played football growing up my whole life, and wrestled and baseball. So, but I got into bodybuilding probably about 5 years ago. I'd say really started, training like that. I would really say that I really started taking bodybuilding serious about 3 years ago. So I had the foundation built. But weightlifting's always been like something I was smaller. I was very athletic as a kid, but I was always like getting teased for being 145, 150 pounds, So when I got in the gym and started realizing like, oh, I got a pump, I'm looking big, and I fell in love with the pump, and then I really just fell in love with, just the gym and growing. And I learned that, my structure with my muscle belly and stuff, like I could grow muscle pretty quick, but I can also lose it really quick too. So it's one of those catches. But yeah, I fell in love with it just by sheer of I was tired of being teased for being the athletic kid, but always being called small.
Yeah.
So yeah, which I think a lot of people relate the gym to that. So
yeah.
I'm the furthest from thinking that just because you have muscle that makes you a man. I think it's great discipline wise in anything, but I also think that there's a lot of really good men out there who maybe don't want to be a bodybuilder, and that doesn't define them if they're overweight or if they're skinny or whatever you want to say. I don't think that defines what a man is. I think that just is overall a character trait. Like if you're disciplined in the gym, but there's people that's disciplined in their job that are killing it in real estate or killing it in this, and that's their passion.
Right.
So there's a lot of people who take bodybuilding really serious, but they don't take a lot of stuff serious in life. And there's a lot of people who take their careers real serious, but they don't take the gym serious. So
yeah,
I think it comes down to passion.
Yeah. I think too, having some sort of balance and a mixture of like different things that you're passionate about, because, I've talked to several people, power lifters and bodybuilders and people in just different areas of fitness. They talk about, when people kind of age out of something,
right,
and then they lose like who they are because they put so much stock into this one thing.
Yes. Yeah. I can relate to that. For like 2 years, I just was obsessed with bodybuilding, and I love it. But I think as I'm getting older now, I'm 33, and people say, that you can compete in the sport forever. But I think as you get older, you start to realize that, there's a lot more important things too. And like, I'm at that mindset now of where, just now qualifying for nationals at 33, and I love it, and I want to go get my shot at nationals, but it's not going to define who I am. But it's also, I have a life to balance with family and kids and wife and all that too. So I think when you're younger and you don't have really those thoughts like any other young kid has, I think it's easy to be caught up in that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that because you're young. Like, why not go chase it? But I think as you get older, it's just one of those things where you start kind of like want to pursue other things. You really want to kind of leave your mark on something, that you have passion with outside of the gym.
Yeah. And it's something that a lot of people do talk about too, is like going all in on something,
Yes.
right? Because that's the only way that most people ever are truly great at it.
Right.
So it's kind of a tricky thing to be like, you have to have a little bit of balance. That's one message. The other message, from maybe some more extreme people is like, you got to be obsessed. You have to go all in. You have to, cut everybody out that's not supporting you, and you have to do all these things. Like, it's so challenging to know like what's the right way. And I think that somewhat of the truth is like there's not necessarily just a right way to do it.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think that maybe as you get through with bodybuilding and you do more and more preps, I think you learn balance. But I also think to get to that extreme, of being at the Olympia stage and that, like, there is a certain point where you have to be obsessed with it, and you have to, and I think, if you have a partner in life or whatever it is, they have to be on board with that obsession. I think obsession makes greatness, but I also think you can still have fun in this sport. But, if I'm not obsessed with it for those 16 weeks, I think that if I'm going up with somebody who 2 or 3 guys that are fully obsessed with it, 9 out of 10 times, I'm probably going to lose to those guys, because it carries over. I think you really have to be dialed in for those preps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, bodybuilding's so unique because it's that 16 weeks or 20 weeks or whatever, that prep length is. It's all of that, obviously plus a lot more, the years and things like that come along with building and things. But, when you look at other sports, you played other sports. Right. It's like that other time is practice time, and then you play the game.
Right.
When in, bodybuilding, it's almost like the game is that whole 20 weeks or 16 or whatever weeks.
Are you a personal trainer, online fitness coach, or gym owner on the verge of burnout? Are you wanting to grow your fitness business but can't add more hours to your hectic schedule? Introducing Trainer Revenue Multiplier, the premier wealth creation system for fitness professionals that helps you earn more and work less. Visit www.trainerrevenuemultiplier.com today to schedule your free business accelerator session. If you're serious about taking your business to the next level, schedule your call today.
Really, I would say that the game is all year round.
Yeah.
People say off season, but I think off season is just another form of prep, because if you just don't take advantage of that health phase right after a show and you're not getting better at posing and really growing, you're probably going to look the same at the next show. And I think that's where a lot of people mess up, really. And then they kind of wait till they're, 6 to 8 weeks out from maybe starting a prep, and they really try to push the volume then, and it's just too late. I think that you can grow going into a show, but, I really think the off season is really the true prep, so.
Yeah. Well, how did you manage that at the beginning? And maybe it's something that you did or didn't realize, but like that all of this time was going to end up being like so important that this one gym session, whether you skip it or not, is really going to end up mattering. That one meal, that one whatever.
I realized it probably a year and a half ago at my last show. I competed when it was the right there at the Derby. What is it? It was the Kentucky Derby show before it changed over. I think it's Kentucky Cup now.
Yeah,
what it is?
I think so.
Yeah, I had a great coach then. I had a lot of good stuff going, and I got to a point probably about 2-3 weeks out where I thought I was good enough, and I kind of let off that, and it's easy to hear that when you're in the gym. People are telling you, "Oh man, you're ready," and I love that people support you, but they truly don't understand the stage, and I let it get to my head, and I let off on cardio. I let off on things, and my glutes not ended up being in like they should. My hamstrings were kind of, as I call it, washed out a little bit. And I realized that I got third in that show too, which is even crazy. Like for me letting off, like to still get third, that's humbling.
Yeah.
But what it showed me was like, man, if you really just dialed in for those 10 to 12 weeks and gave it everything you had, like what would you truly get out of it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which this past show really paid off. So.
And I think actually the show that you mentioned, that was the first show that I've ever went to.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
That was a stacked show. There was some good, the Machine David. I don't know if you know with him. I think he was in that show. I think he was maybe his first show. So, Judge Love was in that show. There's a lot of good people that compete in these Louisville shows. So.
Yeah. What's the community as far as like, because you're not specifically right here in Louisville,
Right.
but you're talking about people that may be from here, from, close to around this area. Is that community pretty, in your experience at least, pretty well, kind of knit together pretty tightly, and like people talk and people, I'm sure there's probably some bad blood and some bad relationships and things like that with anything, but like, do you feel like that there's a lot of just support and, because there's some people that I've had on here that, I follow on social media that you're following, even though you're not necessarily right here in this city, like I said. So what is that kind of experience for you?
I think the overall community, at least that I follow and around here, is there, I feel like it's pretty positive.
Yeah.
You have a few bad apples here and there. And I think that for the most part, everybody here is really just, when it comes to posing clinics and it really comes to like the factory and all this stuff and everyday athletes, I think these gyms have done a really good job of building a community. I'm sure there's some competitive edge between some of these places, but, for the most part, I feel like people here, they take it so serious and the passion's there. Everybody wants to see everyone succeed. I think closer to shows, people are dialed in and the trash talking begins, but I think it's part of the sport, just having fun.
Yeah. And because you are, a little bit away, what's the community like where you are? What's the fitness and bodybuilding community like compared to here?
To be honest with you, I don't really know. I'm kind of a homebody, I still talk to a lot of people here, but from the bodybuilding community there, I go to a couple smaller gyms. And I'm not really too involved with the bodybuilding community there. I did, however, go to the Knox Classic. It was a pretty cool venue. It's different to see. It is cool to see the different venues from state to state. I was a lot more impressed with the Louisville shows when it comes to the overall athletes and everyone being really dialed in. The Knox Classic, it seemed like a lot of the younger kids just getting into it. And they have a lot of masters guys as well, too. It was a cool venue, though, but I don't think it holds a candle to what Louisville brings.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Do you think that's just more of a major city or more people or more competitors, or what do you think that is?
I think it's more of there's more competitors here. I think I think bodybuilding's took a lot more serious here. I don't think there's a couple gyms in Louisville, in Knoxville that have that, but it's more of just powerlifters and more of a lot of social media influencers rather than it is the actual bodybuilding.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's an interesting kind of world. I really realized that split is out there.
It is.
Last year. And it's, somewhat unfortunate that there is that like animosity between the two.
Right.
I get, why there kind of is some of that, but at the same time, bodybuilders are in it for a specific reason, right? And I think, the influencers are in it for a specific reason.
Yeah.
And they sometimes, get into the world of bodybuilding, maybe do a show or do a few shows or whatever,
right.
Want to be coaches or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's like both of them,
they're trying to better themselves.
Yeah, they're doing something for themselves. They're doing, it's like don't just because you do something, put that over everything else. This is better. I'm a better kind of person because I do this and you do that. Like, I think there's a little bit of like I don't really know what the best phrase is, but like almost like a class disparity there. Like, oh, we're better than you because we do this and you do that. Like, I don't know. I think that there's a little bit of room for growth together in that sense.
Yeah, it's that sense of pride.
Yeah.
If what I do is the best,
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's passion, man. Like, for me, there's a lot of work that goes into these social media influence guys constantly posting, making content. Like, I've really been trying to do that, especially with the brand that I'm building. And you see behind it, like, it's a lot of work, and I've learned to respect, like, do you have to agree with it all and all that stuff? Is there some bad info being put out there? Yeah, but you still have to respect it. They're being consistent.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing with bodybuilding and whatever it is, that's my whole thing. Like, if you're truly good at something and people see it, like there's a lot of passion and grit behind it. There's hard work goes into any of it.
Yeah. I think we're all just doing what we're doing so we can, better ourselves and better our position in life and, maybe help other people, whatever it may be. But I think both routes and any given route can be used as long as it's being done in the right way.
In the right way. And to like, who cares? Like if that's what they're passionate about and they want to make TikToks all day, but it gives them joy, like let them, it's their life,
Yeah.
So, the people don't agree with bodybuilding. Like, well, why are these guys getting up here posing underwear and doing this weird stuff in the mirrors, Like there's a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm not doing that. But they don't understand the passion that somebody has for that. So my whole thing is like, man, if somebody's passionate about it and you see it, just stay in your lane about it.
Yeah. So kind of going back in time to where we started with the kind of the fusion for you of where bodybuilding really came into your world and into your when did it become part of like, not necessarily even something, maybe it was at the same time because there's some people who just like jump right into things. But for me, I kind of knew about bodybuilding before, and I don't compete, but just getting into like more of it and more like talking to people about it and more of what it really is kind of thing.
I knew what it was. I didn't understand it, but I knew Arnold. I knew, Ronnie Coleman and stuff, but I wasn't one of those people who could tell you about it passionately. I didn't know how many Olympias they won. I didn't know all that stuff. The first guy I actually met and I was like, man, I want to look like that, was Andre Ferguson. And I met him at Louisville Athletic Club. He was prepping for the Arnold. I think that was one he's going for 3 times back-to-back for the Arnold Classic. And I saw him in the gym, and I remember, like, my God, dude, he just looks phenomenal, And I think a lot of people were standoffish by him, but, he's just a very straightforward guy. I went up and talked to him, and man, like, I was impressed with him. Amazing work ethic and just the way he flowed posing. I still think he's one of the best posers all time. Obviously, he's one of the best physique guys all time, but he was the first, and I never even competed in physique. That's what's crazy, but I love the look, and he was the guy who really kind of, I was like, man, I want to chase this. That's the look right there. So
going up to him, was it like just going up to another guy in the gym, or was it going up to this guy who you had seen as like, man, this guy's achieved so much, it's kind of cool to go up to this guy? Like, what was your take on that?
For me, I can talk to anyone. So I really don't really care, the level of status, whatever it is, because I'm just a talker regardless. And I kind of just worked my way over to the dumbbells. And then I remember I just kind of moved my head, sat down. I was like, dude, you look phenomenal. And it's kind of fist bump from there. And as we met a couple more times over at the gym, like conversations got deeper. But, there is a whole aspect of when you do say something first, is he going to acknowledge me, or is it just going to be, oh, I know I look good, and put the headphones back on? So,
yeah.
But yeah, I think it's different for everybody. For me, I'm a talker. So
gotcha. So from there, I mean, is that where your interest started, and is that when did you first do that and we're like, okay, then let's think about it for a while, let's continue to do what we're doing, or what was that?
Yeah, it's from there. I started going home watching YouTube videos, man. Gotcha. Typing him in and seeing it, and then it just got deeper into, then I found out what Classic was. It's changed so much since then, but I found out what Classic was, and just watching all that, and I was just like, okay, I'm going to start talking to some people at the gym about who's a good local coach around here and stuff. So then I started digging into coaches, and, then you get into it and you just realize, like, there's so much into the sport.
Yeah.
Posing is everything too. Like, you just think like it's about getting in shape, but there's so many things that tie into it. It's a lot.
Yeah. And when you did get into it, did you start to like see it more? Because I feel like even just being in the world of fitness myself and not really knowing about bodybuilding and being exposed to the community, I didn't see it. Like, it wasn't there for me.
Like, you didn't notice it?
Didn't notice it. People don't necessarily look like bodybuilders. A lot of people, unless you're the huge, massive person, which most bodybuilders really aren't that massive. Like, they have great, muscles and conditioning and all the things, but with clothes on, you don't really notice it. They could be walking down the street, you wouldn't notice it. But then I kind of started to talk to more people. You see, like, oh, this is kind of what a bodybuilder really looks more like, traditionally, or just walking down the street regularly. So you maybe start to notice more people. Okay, this person at the gym, they kind of have this certain look about them. You know, this person, whatever. Did the same thing happen? Did you just start to see it more?
Yeah, you start to see it. You can tell the muscle development, and you can tell by the way they're training. The biggest thing is a lot of people will be hitting poses in between sets, and the way they're squeezing the muscles and stuff. And then, you know, obviously you see them doing cardio at certain times and then being back at the gym. So once you have your plan by your coach, that stuff starts popping up a lot more, you know? So that's a really cool point. I've never really thought about that, but yeah, you notice it more. Like now in the gym, I can walk up to somebody and be like, hey man, you compete. Like, oh, well, I hadn't competed in a couple of years, but they've built that structure and the way they train and stuff, you know, it definitely starts to stand out a lot more.
Yeah. And when you did start to notice it more, I guess when you first really got into it and you were like, oh, I want to do this, did you think like, who else is doing this? Is, you know, because you don't see it. Who out there is doing this kind of thing? I mean, you know, at least in your local area, I mean, did it start to like, did you start to think who's going to be at this show? Who's going to be at these shows? Like, there's not anybody out there that I see.
Yeah, my first show, you know, I got extremely lean. I wasn't developed enough for anything yet, but being at the gyms I was in, like, I was like in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can win this thing, you know, because I just wasn't seeing everybody, and I got to that show and I remember getting backstage and I was like, okay, where did all you guys come from? I didn't realize you guys traveled from all these gyms, and I didn't realize that, all you guys are at the factory. Okay, that's where it is. I'm over here at LAC. You know, I didn't know about those gyms. But yeah, when you get to the show, that's a whole different ball game. And I was walking in that show, like, I was telling my family, like, I really think I got a chance to win this thing. No, I don't even know if I got second calls. I got dog walked, man, you know, but you realize, and I tell people that all the time, like, being in shape in the gym and being looking good on social media and then getting to the show is, you realize real quick that you're in the animals, you know, you're in the lion's den, man. It's a whole different ball game. And I've had my ass whipped couple times for sure. Sorry for the language.
Do you think that it's challenging? Was it challenging for you? Do you think it's challenging for a lot of people when they do have that realization of like, oh man, I look so good? Because maybe when you aren't training in a bodybuilding gym, you look like a million times better than everybody else.
Yes.
Or, you know, compared to your friends and family, you just look like, wow, I'm a god right now, or a goddess right now.
Yeah.
Was it hard when you did walk in there to have that like reality check at all? Was it like, man, am I ever going to get here? How long is it going to take for me to get here? What are these other people doing to get there?
So I'll say it two ways. Back then, yes, I was like, my gosh, like, I look like crap. Oh man, like look how I just remember warming up and I couldn't even focus on my mind to muscle connection because I'm just amazed by all these guys. And here I was, I thought I was like top level, you know. Yeah. But I'll say now, that I just look at it as, you know, did I beat my last version? You know, that's the biggest thing. Is there's always going to be a guy who's more developed. There's always going to be a guy he's further along in this and that. I always tell people the two things you can control is your posing and your conditioning. After that, if you know you gave it your best and you beat your last look, that's really all that matters. Because there's guys who've been doing this sport for 10 years, 15 years, and they've never got past nationals. There's guys who's done it 10, 15 years who's only maybe gotten top 2 at regionals. You know, it's the luck of the draw and who shows up. And if you're constantly comparing yourself to that guy, I think it's good for comparisons. Don't get me wrong. Like, okay, this guy won overall. What was he like? I think it's great to take comparisons, but I also think it's good to go back to your drawing board, get your judges' feedback, and be like, you know what? I got 9th in my last show. I got 3rd, and then I just got, you know, I got 2 overalls and this and that. So did I beat my last version? You know, because if you caught up and, you know, letting everybody scare you backstage, like, you're never gonna get ahead, man. Because there's a lot of really good athletes out there, man.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's crazy how many people there are that do bodybuilding, and like you said, so many of them don't reach a certain level, right? I mean, I've talked to so many high achieving bodybuilders, like Olympian, like 20, 25, 30 Olympians, and you know, even more IFBB pros. And so in my head, I'm starting to think like, man, everybody seems like they're pros, and everybody seems like they're like, who couldn't reach the Olympia stage? Like, and then you get back down to earth and you're like, no, there's actually a ton of people out there who put just as much in as these Olympians do, and just as much in as any other competitor does, and they're not seeing the results that they want to see, but they still go and they still do it, and they still repeat it, and they still have so much passion about it, which to me is just like, it's really cool and it's crazy, but it's also like, man, what is it that drives somebody to just continue? Because it's not necessarily just a comfortable process, right? It's not easy. It's not something that's like, oh, I'm doing this because it's, it brings me so much passion or so much joy in the moment to, not get to eat and not get to, do all these things and have the freedom that some other people have. So, I mean, it's just, what do you think it is? I mean, you could say passion, but that's such a general thing. Like, what is it about bodybuilding in particular that makes people want to just continue to almost suffer, and sometimes in their core of their being maybe know that they're never going to reach a certain level?
Well, one, I think there's that hope that they're going to reach that level, I think. But two, for me, as much as prep's always the same, you know what to expect, off season, you always know what to expect. It's as much as it's always the same, it's always different, if that makes sense. Like, each prep, if you've done it right and you start to develop and you start to get leaner and leaner, you see this new muscles come in, you see these new fibers and all that. And I think too, I call it like being reborn, like, just resetting those receptors and just cleaning out the body. As much as you feel horrible and bad at times, there's times where you wake up and you go to the bathroom mirror and you start dying laughing because you're just like, holy cow, like, what is this? What is that? So I think it's that too. And I think too, it's just, all the sports I've played, I was involved in mixed martial arts. I was involved in wrestling. I was football. There's something about bodybuilding that just, you get that deep into prep and the challenge of it. I think it just really, I tell people bodybuilding gives you so much more than just a stage. And I think you truly learn, like, man, if I can get through this and I can get up on stage and do this and I can get through these feelings, like, there's a lot of stuff you can really achieve in life you can take from bodybuilding and apply it to a lot of other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are just addicted to those 60 seconds on stage, man. It's euphoric, man. It's such a great feeling.
Yeah.
Are you a personal trainer who wants to scale and grow your business online? Have you been coaching online for years, yet don't know how to incorporate online into your current business model? Introducing Trainer Revenue Multiplier, the premier wealth creation system for fitness professionals that helps you earn more and work less. Visit www.trainerrevenuemultiplier.com today to schedule your free business accelerator session. If you're serious about taking your business to the next level, schedule your call today.
I mean, it's just crazy how all-encompassing it is.
Yeah.
In that way.
Yeah. That's funny you bring that up. I was thinking about that the other day. Like, even when your coach tells you to enjoy a free meal, like, in your head, you're just like, oh, like, because you're just always on point. Even though the free meal is a good thing, it's good to get those refeeds and everything, but it was just constant, and finding that balance. I think that comes in time with maturity of the sport, and I think that comes with having a really good coach that can kind of keep you balanced and kind of like, hey man, it's okay to step away for like a week, go enjoy vacation, go eat some food, having that balance. But even it's easier said than done, because when you're on vacation, you're just like, man, I look like crap. I haven't worked out. I haven't done this, and it never relieves you, just because that there's somebody not on vacation and somebody grinding in the gym, and you just know that really every day counts. So, and there's that fine line of enjoying vacation and then putting yourself in a bad spot too.
Yeah. I mean, I can only imagine, putting in all that work and all that time, and because you're building not just your body, but you're building like a certain thought pattern.
Yes.
Behind every single thing. Like,
where it can almost be toxic.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's a hard thing, because there is a lot of people out there that think, man, bodybuilders must be obsessed with this, and they must be, so obsessed and have a bad relationship with food and a bad relationship with everything, because everything, if they don't do it right, then it's like all the pressure's on them to do everything right. And I think that that's true from a certain point of view. But just knowing that, like, it also gives everything purpose, I think, is cool.
Yeah.
Like, most people go throughout a day, and it doesn't matter what they really do other than, I have to make it to work on time, and maybe do some things, you know, if I have kids, I have to take them to these things. And, you know, but I mean, not to say that those people don't have responsibilities, but like, it doesn't matter if they pick up a donut because their boss bought them donuts, or doesn't matter, you know, if they get, you know, if they get pizza that day and go out and have, you know, a great time, like, but at the same time, when you don't have that meaning, you don't really, like, it doesn't give you that same sense of purpose. It doesn't give you that same sense of like, I accomplished something. So I think there's two ways to look at it. And I think there's certainly, you can have both, even at the same time. You can have a feeling of obsession, but also a feeling of like purpose and meaning.
Right. And I think, kind of playing devil's advocate here, I think too that, you know, I try to be realistic with it, man. And, you know, you think like those people like don't really feel like they have a meaning and everything. But I think a lot of time too, bodybuilders get in their head and feel like, am I selfish? You know, like, you know, I'm not enjoying this Thanksgiving dinner, you know, or I'm not enjoying this cupcake with my kid or whatever. And you start to, I've really got into that. Like my grandma made like a nice pecan pie, and, you know, I wouldn't eat any of it. But, you know, if she passed away, would I wish that I would have maybe ate my grandma's last pecan pie, you know, because it's like the stage is always going to be there. And like, is it real at the end of the day? Like if I really have, if I'm not in prep, obviously, but if I just eat that pecan pie, like, is having that memory of telling my grandma, thank you for that, outweigh like me maybe getting top 2 at a national show?
Yeah.
That's where I am with it, you know? And, so that's just, it's, you got to really be dialed in the sport, man. You know?
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, that example, it makes me think of, the example of what Arnold Schwarzenegger, talked about when his father passed away, and he was like, oh, I can't go to your funeral. I can't go back home, and I can't go do this because I have a show in X amount of weeks, and that's going to get me off of everything.
Yeah. Wow.
So, I mean, it's like, it goes back to it. Some people are obsessed. Some people have, you know, when you're at that top level, you maybe have more of a necessity for obsession, but also you have a necessity for obsession if you want to get there. So it's
right. It's, you can't really hate on either one.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, Kobe put in all that work, and the thing about MJ, his documentary, and people talking about him, but, you know, their legacies are left, you know? So I think it comes down to what you truly want out of it. And it comes down to, you know, can you find a balance? Are you good enough to find a balance? You know, there's a lot of people who are genetically gifted, and there's a lot of people they're good enough to find that balance because they're that dialed in with their diet. They're that dialed in with posing all the time. They're that dialed in with giving everything they got, that on some of those off days, they can enjoy life a little bit.
Yeah. And
there are some people who they're not good enough yet, and they don't have, you know, the discipline to have that balance yet. Yeah. And that's where it's, you know, you're going to have to sacrifice for 2 or 3 years to get to this point. You know, every client's probably different for every coach. Like, you know, there's a couple of guys that can have that balance, and you're just not at that point yet. And if you're not willing to give that up for 1 or 2 years and, you know, really be strict in things, you know, this probably isn't the sport for you.
Yeah.
But that's just, the sport don't lie. The stage don't lie. You know? So,
well, I mean, going back to what you said, like, you know, we were talking about Kobe and Michael. I mean, you know, God forbid, like, you put in all that work, and you think, oh, I'm sacrificing now so I can enjoy, you know, later, and I can, you know, have all the, whether it be the money or the whatever, the resources, the time with my family later on. I mean, you know, God forbid something happens like Kobe Bryant, right? He put in all this work so he could, you know, obviously enjoy what he was doing and be great at what he was doing.
Right.
But I'm sure that also part of his plan was, hey, let's make so much money and have so much, you know, possibilities later on that we can do whatever we want with our kids, and we can do all these things. You know, I mean, I think a lot of people have that same mindset of like, whether it be bodybuilding or basketball or just work in general, let me just grind hard and make as much money as I can, or grow my body as much as I can now, because then it's going to benefit us later. You know, some people that it's almost a little bit of luck too, right? Because you have to be lucky to, you know, if you're going to put off that balance into a long-term kind of viewpoint, you have to be a little bit lucky that you're going to be around to enjoy that balance.
Right.
So
no, I agree 100%. People say that, you know, there's no luck involved, but, you know, there's luck involved in a lot of things. But I also think luck comes from the universe. I think it pays for the people who truly put in the work. You know what I mean? So you can look at it as luck, or you can look at it as the universe, giving back to that person. But the Kobe Bryant thing, for example, dies in a helicopter crash with his daughter, right? And it's an extremely sad story, but also too, like, I'm sure like he was setting up to be able to invest in his daughter for basketball and all that stuff. And so it is sad. People are like, he put all that time in just to pass away in a helicopter crash. But you can also look at it as he put all that time in to now where his kids are taken care of for the rest of their life. He leaves a legacy. He was also had balance. If you look at his stuff, like as much as he was putting into himself in basketball, when he was home, he was involved with his kids. He had balance. But that's where it comes into that level of greatness. Some of those guys, they can't. They have to be focused on the game of basketball to be that good. Where Kobe got to that level to where he could achieve balance now by putting all that work in. So.
Right. And do you think that, people that, looking at it kind of in a comparison way between people who are in the sport and just any sport for a longer period of time versus maybe looking at it from the perspective of bodybuilding, do you think that there's like a sense of, do you think there's a sense of comfort that comes along with it after a certain period of time, and not necessarily comfort like complacency comfort, but comfort along the lines of like you start to learn more about just the whole thing, how it works, how your body responds, what to expect? Or do you think that it's so evolving, your body and the sport and everything is so evolving that it's almost like everything is kind of new in a sense every time?
I think it's both, if that makes sense. I knew what to expect this whole last prep, so I think it helped me mentally. But you never know what to expect when you're going to wake up one day and just feel horrible, or the next day when you're kind of having a little bit of a peak of energy. For me, this last prep, man, I don't know if it could ever be replicated for me because it was just so smooth, a lot of that goes to my coach, but I think a lot of that goes to just following the game plan, communicating well. But mentally I knew like, okay, I'm starting to feel it. This is where you start to feel about 5 weeks out. You know what you're going to feel about 2 weeks out, and just kind of working yourself through it. But I think every time it's different because every time you're trying to beat your past self. So, if I was 6% body fat, like we're pushing to get to 5, we're pushing, in the off season, like we got up to 212, we're pushing to get to 225. So you always know what to expect, but then when it starts hitting you, it's always just something new.
Yeah. And because like bodybuilding, you can really, like there's so much behind like the analytics of like just the weight and the muscle, size and the, all that kind of stuff compared to maybe like if you were, let's kind of throwing it back to basketball again, cause it's an easy comparison.
Right.
Like
Funny.
You could make 10, okay, today I made 10 jump shots. Right. The next day I missed 10 like in a row. So it's kind of harder to like, on a smaller term basis, like, did I improve, did I not improve?
Right.
Whereas in bodybuilding, maybe it's a little bit easier to know based on those, the weights. Is the weight going up or is it going down? Is the whatever going which way that you want it? But when it doesn't necessarily go that way, you step on the stage, you put in all this work, and it doesn't seem like you've gotten better.
Right.
How do you handle the fact that you've put in the work, but maybe the result just isn't what you thought it was going to be?
I think when you come off stage, you're beat up. I think there is before you make any kind of decisions or really think about beating yourself up or it didn't go your way, give yourself 4 or 5 weeks post show to really think about and go back and look at the photos and go back about the feelings. Cause I don't think you're in the right mindset to make any decisions on if you want to keep competing or not, but I also don't think you're in the right mindset to really just be coming off of, should I beat myself up? The body is in a very fragile state at that point, I think mentally. So my big thing is take that 4 or 5 week health phase, whatever it is, and then really kind of once you come out of it and get your blood work done and you're in a good spot, like look back on it. Go back with your coach and look back on it and truly look at like, okay, it didn't go the way I thought, but let's compare this stuff. I'm very big on post show not making rash decisions because I just think even if you win the show, I think it's kind of like you're feeling on top of the world. Like, should we go straight into nationals or do and riding that wave, or do we need to dial back here? And do I need to go into off season and give the body a break here? So I think it's just really giving your time to process it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that processing, I mean, it's so hard to be objective.
Yes.
It's so hard to be objective on yourself.
Yeah.
We can give the best advice. We can, tell somebody else, this is what you should do.
Yeah.
This is what I would do. But then when we're in this situation, this is what I would do, just rarely actually happens.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. And, we did phenomenal at this last show. And I remember coming off stage thinking like, okay, we were right there for overall. Like, should I just jump into another show real quick? But then you kind of have to sit there and realize, like, is it a big picture? For some people, it is a big picture overall, or is it a big picture doing what we came to do, and that's qualify for nationals and go into an off season. But the same thing is you're right there, and you're like, oh well. But I could go to that next show and get 6th, and get busted, and then it's like, okay, so I just put my body through 3 more weeks of brutality just to drop 4 spots.
Yeah,
let's go into the off season. Let's be humble and be happy with what we achieved.
Yeah. And when that happens, when you do, just in general, when you don't get the placement you want, or it doesn't, maybe the body just isn't responding and on show day the way that you thought it would. I mean, how much does that really affect, and it's such a long-term sport, so I'm sure, that the feeling does wear off like you're talking about, and you can kind of be more objective about it a little bit later on. But like, how much does that affect just like the push or the motivation of like, man, I'm never going to look like that again. I'm never going to let that happen again.
A lot, this past show, I'll be 100% transparent with you. Like, best I've ever looked, 100% the best I've ever looked. And I was disgusted with myself in the pictures. I couldn't take time. That's where I got to get a little bit more mature in the sport too. I'm man enough to admit that too, but I'm so competitive, and I really gave it so much that I didn't take time to realize, like, you just won, 2 novice overalls. You just won an overall in open body, or not open. I won my class in open bodybuilding, got into overalls. I got 2nd in classic in the open. I had like 4 first place trophies, and I didn't take time to realize that. All I'm taking time is to look at the photos. Somebody's shown them to me, and I'm like, oh, my glute's not contracted. But I think that's where the pride kicks in, but it's also you're not taking time to realize, like, dude, some people won't even win a trophy in 10 years of competing. Mm-hmm. Where does that being humble and just enjoying the journey? I got that from Austin Brown. Like, enjoy the journey. Enjoy, like, what brought you there. Like, take time after the stage. Even if it doesn't go your way, like, just take time to soak it in, and if you're in it to always be on the high road all the time and always be in it to win it all the time, like, I think you're in the wrong sport too, because, you're not always going to win every show.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it's any sport, right? I mean, the sport is made up of people who don't win.
Right.
I mean, there's only going to be one winner.
Yes. That's crazy. It's not like you're on an NFL team where, you got, guys on a roster of 100 guys all winning.
Yeah.
It's one thing, and it's minor things. We go back and look at my show, me and that guy were really close, and a lot of people were saying that they felt like I should have won, and I don't play that. There's something the judges saw, and I will never take away from that guy that beat me. There's something the judges saw. Whether or not the crowd didn't see it, the judges saw it, and that's all that matters. And for me, like, I go back and look at something. I was hitting my back double bicep, and I only contracted one glute. So maybe that's what got it. And people don't see that. And I'm like, hey, you know what? I should have practiced engaging my glutes more. Maybe that's what did it, And right. At the end of the day, I look at his shots, both his glutes were contracted. At the end of the day, that's on me, man. It's on me. So,
is there ever comfort though in knowing I was good enough to win?
Yes. There's comfort, but there's also like, oh man, what did it felt like to win that overall?
Yeah.
But there is comfort knowing that you belong now. So the comfort is knowing that, like, okay, I've showed myself, like, I can be competitive. Like, I can, if I truly take some off seasons, and I can go to nationals and I can be something. But there is I think it's just that thing of, like, just knowing you were right there for overall. is just like, because next year can be totally different. I could show up to do the same show, and there could be 3 or 4 just units show up,
Right.
So it's just, you never know.
Yeah. I think it's hard too because our expectations dictate our reality and how we feel about something,
Yes.
because if we really expect to, like, okay, it's our first show, maybe we go in with the expectation. I mean, that could be different. You could have the expectation
me.
you did of like, oh, I'm going to win this show.
And get dog walked.
Right. But if you have the expectation of like, all right, I'm going out there, it's my first
Yeah.
show, probably not going to do great, but it's a stepping stone.
Yeah.
Then you're kind of happy with, okay, I got 7th, let's just say randomly.
Right.
But if you're to the expectation level of like, okay, I think I should be top 5, and you get 7 again, then all of a sudden that's not great. You're not happy. And I think that's an important thing in humans,
Right.
because we always want to get better. We always want to know, like, okay, I put in this work, now I should be doing better.
Right.
But at the same time, I think we can sometimes have unrealistic expectations, or even we can like manipulate our expectations.
Yeah.
And if we can do that, we can, I think we can control kind of like what that experience becomes for us. And I was talking to an Olympian, and she competed, I think 5 or something times in the Olympia, and she was like, I'm not going to let necessarily the outcome of this dictate how I feel about it, because
That's such a mature way to see it too.
and she was like, she called it her tea party. It's a week out, and then even this Olympia, she was like, you know what, we're just going to make it 2 weeks out where I start to, you're still going to do your thing as you have to do, but I'm really going to start to embrace this experience and what this is about to be like, and all that kind of stuff that we've put in already. And I think that that's such a great way to look at it, because there's too much. Like you said, you have to enjoy the experience. You have to be able to take something positive away from this. And if you're putting in all this work and then at the end of the day, it's only negativity,
Right.
I mean, that can't be sustainable.
No, it can't. And I think that's where having an excellent coach as well, somebody who's setting the expectation, somebody who is also holding you accountable, but they're also there to let you know, like look how far you've come. Like, look at your beginning photos from when you got with me to now. Like, yeah, maybe it didn't go our way here at the show, but like, you can take all the positives from it too, and be like, now you know what a prep feels like. Now you know what it means to push that cardio. Now you know what it means to be not having any carbs, and now, hey, let's get into this health phase. Let's get better. And now we're going to keep growing. And I think that's where the big window is now too, is a lot of people are going to the stage at the regional levels with these expectations that are just out the roof. And I don't think their coach has been too real with them. I don't think they've, got with opposing coach like they should have. And they're being told by their friends and a lot of local people, even in their family. And I think that's fine. It's great to have support. They're being all pulled up, and then they get to the show and they just, as I call it, they get dog walked, and they're afraid to even go back on social media and afraid to show back up to the gym, because all they know is they look good and I'm about to go dominate this show. Hashtag, I'm taking over. I'm the one, I'm him. And then you get back there and you realize, like, okay, well, I just got whooped, and how am I going to recover from putting all this unnecessary pressure on me?
Yeah.
Rather than looking at, like, I'm in better shape than, at least on the outside. I'm not going to say that everybody's always on better shape inside, but on the outside, like, more than like 95% of America will ever look.
Yeah.
Like, and just be happy that you got to that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, in a similar way, I don't want to compare it because I didn't put in nearly the effort, nearly the work per se. But, I ran a marathon a few years back, and, someone told me that 1% of the population ever finishes a marathon.
Yeah.
And I never really even went into it with the expectation of winning, of course. I mean, it's the Louisville Marathon. It's not a huge one, but it's, pretty good runners show up. And but getting done with that, I mean, it's not like I was like putting out there, oh, I'm the 1% now or anything like that, but just knowing that, like, you achieve something, like you said, that maybe 5% or 1% or whatever small percentage of people may never do.
Right.
It really opens your eyes up to the possibilities, like you said before, of what you can do.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And then, but you also, the big thing for me is that you stop really, for me, I've stopped comparing myself to everybody. I've stopped really I've done 2 or 3 shows, yeah, that's cool. Now I'm starting a supplement company. Now I'm doing this. So I take all the opportunity that's given me and I try to think about it like that rather than just comparing myself to whatever, So,
Yeah.
I think that even like you said, the 1%, instead of just worrying about that too, you did a marathon.
Yeah.
It's your own personal achievement. Who cares if it's 1%, 99%, whatever.
Yeah.
You did a freaking marathon. I'm not doing a marathon. I don't like running. So for me, I admire you just saying that. Cause for me, I don't have, it's funny. I have the willpower to get through cardio and prep, but I do not have the willpower to go run a marathon. It just ain't happening. I'd rather get put back in prep. I just have no emotion or drive to do a marathon.
Right. That's funny. I mean,
yeah,
I think it's cool just what the human body is capable of. I think that's kind of what even drove me to do it, is just to see what was possible. And it's kind of funny because I haven't been able to lift weights for 7 months now.
Yeah.
And I've almost been like, oh, I can't do this. I can't. But I'm just going to keep waiting until I can, or hopefully I can again. I'm sure eventually I will be able to, probably. But I've been thinking maybe I need to do something in the other realm, in the cardio realm or in other realms.
Having that balance.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out if I can't, if I really can't do this, what can I do? But it's almost been it's such a thing that I've been doing for so long that I love doing. It's so hard to give it up. It's so hard. Not that I even think that I have to ever, maybe forever give it up, but if I had to, man, do I even want to put myself into this other thing? Am I even going to be as passionate, or am I going to find something that is as that gives me as much a sense of fulfillment as this other thing did? I think that's been something that I've been dealing with the last couple months, is where do I find that sense of accomplishment and empowerment and things that lifting weights and going to the gym in that way really gave me.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. But to that point, what if you just took that jump on the running, and you were so scared that it's going to not give you that, and then you end up just being obsessed with it, kind of like you just taking the leap to do the podcast, and now look what it's done for you, I think Steve Harvey has a great book called Jump. It's about just taking that leap, and that's the same thing I did with my career and going into the supplement company, making my own supplements now. And that's just taking that jump. There's all that fear of, am I going to get the same that I had from this? Am I going to this, and that? And now the passion for this and everything's taken over to where it's I'm okay if something came up with bodybuilding or I had to put it on the back burner a little bit, because now I've I see that there's other things to have passion in as well, and that balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something that actually you mentioned it, something that I've been thinking about. I've actually been wanting to do it for a long time, is mixed martial arts or a jiu-jitsu or something like that. Yeah. That sounds like something that you can kind of do in your own way, in a way. You can put it your whole body and whole heart and soul into it, or you can just kind of be that person that comes in a few times a week or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that sounds kind of cool.
This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout.
A new realm would be kind of fun. It would be kind of cool. And maybe that's what this opportunity is. And I think looking at it from that perspective, it's a little bit easier to kind of go into it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, look at it. That's the way I've learned to do it. Look at it from that perspective, rather than, it sucks and it's hampering and you'd love to be in there, but is there something that, for me, I'm a big universe guy. Is there something the universe is trying to present to me right now, and why is it on my mind? Whether it's the mixed martial arts, or is it doing this? And I'm a big thing where if it starts popping up in your mind and you're thinking about it, but you're kind of afraid to do it, I think it's the universe telling you hey, give it a shot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and who cares about lifting weights if you're a UFC fighter? You can just suck your shit on everybody. You don't need the weights, man.
Right.
If you're in the octagon just knocking people out or choking people out or whatever, I don't think the weight room really matters, man.
True.
I don't think nobody's gonna give you no crap about.
That's true.
Not being on the incline machine.
Yeah, definitely gain a sense of empowerment there.
Well, it's a challenging sport too.
Yeah.
Just so much goes into that sport. I really respect those guys, man, from the aspect of just what they put themselves through.
Yeah.
Like, you can imagine just walking into a cage, knowing that, like, I may just get knocked out in the first 10 seconds.
Crazy. But you're also one of, like, the best fighters
yeah,
that's living.
Yeah.
And you could still get knocked out in 10 seconds.
Walking assassins is what I call them,
crazy.
man. Like, you know, like, just, you know, like Jose Aldo did when he got knocked out by Conor.
Yeah.
Just absolute. Everybody thought Aldo was going to take it to him, and in 10 seconds, dude's never been knocked out. He's sleeping.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So.
I mean, there's really no, like, there's fighting is a weird one, because you wouldn't expect, like, two amazing teams in the Super Bowl. You wouldn't expect it to be like 49-0 at halftime,
right.
A knockout, a blowout, or whatever. But with fighting, it's so easy to make that happen because it's so technical. There's so many, like,
one wrong
if
movement.
you do one wrong thing, it's all over.
You fall for that fake kick and put the hand down, you're asleep.
Yeah.
You know? And that's what's so amazing. Those guys have seen it so much, though. That's why I try to tell these guys, like, when I'm talking to some friends, like, I'm like, man, you just don't understand. Even these little 120-pound guys, you know, would kill me in 5 seconds.
They know what buttons to press,
know, you know, and they've seen it all. They've seen different punches and everything. It's such an art in itself, too, man. It's a really cool sport. If I was older and wasn't so beat up, I would try to get back into that. But
yeah,
I would get whooped. So
I think it's cool when they talk about, like, watching the fighter and, like, knowing that they do this combination of things, even if it's not like throwing punches or kicks or anything. They move their feet this way before this happens, so I know that this is coming, and this is how I can either defend it or, you know, make a move offensively.
Conor had that thing pre-show against Aldo, that video of him doing the fake and then going for the jab, and he sidesteps and hit it, and it's the exact same thing that he did to Jose Aldo in the octagon. So it's pretty cool, man. Yeah,
it's interesting. I mean, bodybuilding, UFC. I mean, any kind of, you know.
Really anything, man, that people are passionate about is cool.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you watch Steph Curry do his warm-up thing, and it's like, wow, that's insane passion.
Yeah. Well, even in this setup here, you know, like I've been thinking about making my own podcast, and, like, just seeing, like, how you have it set up and seeing the time that you've took with it, and you just see it, you see the passion with it, and then you learn, like, okay, it's not just setting up some mics, there's some stuff that goes into it, you know? So I think that's, like, you learn, I think once you get to a level of where you respect something and you're passionate about it, I think you learn to respect everybody's passion, because you know what it takes to just, you know what it takes, but you also know what it feels like to be truly passionate about something.
Yeah.
So whether it's a real estate agent or whatever, somebody that's got their own business, you learn to appreciate what they've built because you know what it takes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it also is hard to, like, go out in the world and see that some people don't, like, find something. Like, they're not looking, they don't find it, they don't, you know, some people walking around without really any passion about anything.
They live in a Sims world. It's the Sims, man.
Yeah.
It's point A to point B. And I struggle with that with people. I almost feel bad for them. You know, it's like, I wish that you could pull the curtain back for them and let them see that they, you know, but again, I'll be careful saying that. There's nothing wrong with a blue collar life of just going to your 9 to 5 and doing that too. But I think a lot of people have never had the light shed on them or given an opportunity, or maybe it was the way they were raised or their circle of friends, to never have anyone talk to them about, like, what are you passionate about?
Yeah.
Like, what do you want to do? And I think a lot of people's self-esteem is low too by just social media nowadays. They just don't think they can really achieve anything. Yeah.
Well, I think even something that is a hobby, right? I mean, some people don't even, like, have that kind of passion of, like, I mean, I don't know if I would consider it a passion. Maybe it is, but, like, I really am a huge Star Wars nerd.
Yeah.
Like, I will spend, you know, hours, you know, listening to audiobooks and watching YouTube videos, and
Star Wars gets deep, man.
You're right. Yeah.
There's a lot to it.
And it's so silly. It's so, in some ways, kind of stupid, but, like, some people don't even have something that they're, like, could talk about other than other people and the weather and they just don't have. And I think it was the Tate brothers, you know, whether you love them or hate them, but I think it was a good point that one of them made about, like, if you're sitting around with people who are talking about what other people are doing, then you're talking to the wrong people. You know, like, it's okay to talk about, like, what great people, you know, people have done that's great, but like, if you're just talking about, oh, this person from work, you know, blah blah blah, they did blah blah blah, and the drama side of things.
Yeah.
But, like, if you don't have stuff going on in your life, that you can talk about, oh, this is something cool that I did, or this is something even that I'm struggling with, like, then you're not really living your life.
No. And I call it, a lot of people tend to tell me I'm like this hippie, but I call it being centered, and I call it like, protecting your energy. And once you really work on that and protecting your energy and being centered, those conversations, they tend to just kind of they make you feel weird. You don't want to entertain it anymore. And then you start to kind of be like, I got to separate from this person. As much as I like them, they're not doing me any favors. So I think protecting your energy and really growing with that, like, you start to realize, like, you're pulled away from people who just live misery loves company,
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people get a bad rap because it's like they're seen as selfish, kind of what we were talking about before, because like they're going all in on something, or they're really passionate and they spend a lot of time doing something. And I think that in some ways they might be seen as like, I don't want to be involved with them because they only care about themselves. But at the same time, to me, it's more like that person, like you were saying too, they get it. They get, like, just because maybe they're in real estate and they have this passion and they're doing a lot of work, but they would also, because they understand that you're passionate about something, they would drop anything and come help you do something if you asked, or if you're going through a hard time. So it's like, it's not the selfishness that keeps people away from each other. It's the selfishness of, like, passion that almost brings people together because it's more relatable.
Yeah, that's a perfect point, dude. Passionate. So let me ask you this. I feel like you just said it. The passionate person is probably going to drop everything they can to come help you with your passion because they understand it, and they get it, and they want to help you feel it. And that person that's always miserable, if you need help, 9 out of 10 times, what is going to be? There's going to be 9 or 10 excuses as why they can't. Yeah. Right? But they don't understand it. And they're in that whole thing that I'd say all the time, they're just misery loves company, and a passionate person is going to see, like, okay, man, you know what? I can help you about 2:00 today, because they understand it. Yeah. But they're on a different wavelength. They're positive, and they want to help you get there.
Yeah. So. Definitely. I mean, it kind of goes back to the thing of, like, if you want something done, find somebody busy, right? Like, that busy person is busy because they're doing stuff.
I love that. Yeah. And it's sad too, because I just think a lot of people haven't been invested in right, or they haven't had the right person just come along and try to build them up. So I try to do that with people, but at the end of the day, they have to be receptive. Sometimes it takes hitting rock bottom to realize that, you've kind of lost everything. But, sometimes you can see that person who you see the potential there, and you see that, they've had a rough go at it, or maybe they've had somebody mentally break them down and mentally abuse them for years. All it takes is just, start planting those nice seeds of, hey, how are you doing today? Or, hey, what are you passionate about? And then they start talking to you about, oh, I love Harry Potter. Oh, you like Harry Potter? I love Harry Potter. But they start to feel a sense of being appreciated, and they start to feel a sense of, like, oh, well, somebody does actually kind of care about the stuff that I care about. Yeah. And then you start opening up the opportunity of, like, oh, well, what are you passionate about? Oh, I love building computers, like when I'm at home. And then you start saying, well, why don't you open up like a computer shop? Oh, I can't do that. And then it's all this, oh, well, why not? And then you start planting those seeds with those people. So I think a lot of time people just haven't had the right investment from other humans.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think a little bit about what you're saying is isolation too. And I think that we live in a world to where social media has brought us together digitally. And sometimes that can be, very helpful and powerful, but it also has really separated us.
It's depressing.
Yeah, it's like, no, we're all kind of like scrolling through separately. We're watching the same things, maybe, but we're not together. We're having experiences so individually that there's can't remember. It was I think it was Theo Vaughn's podcast, and he was talking to this guy who was talking about shared experiences and the power of why that's important in a society. And how, like, it used to be, 4 channels on TV, and everybody would be like, oh, did you see the game, or did you see this, or did you see, whatever. And everybody had something to talk about and to share and to relate to. And now it's like, even in our own algorithm, everybody has that, but it's not the same. It's a little bit different. And this was a cool thing. And so, like, even having something that is shared is getting harder and harder. Mm-hmm. And that connection somehow gets a little bit broken, because there's so many you know, there's so many different algorithms, but also so many different opinions too. It's like, you got to have, even if you're not exactly with somebody on their opinion, then you're not going to fit anymore.
Oh yeah.
So it's so hard to just be a community.
It is. And you're really not, nowadays you're not really entitled to an opinion. You know, you're either it's this or that. There's no in the middle. There's no, I kind of support that, but I kind of, there's none of that. And you have to be really careful nowadays too, you know, because everyone's constantly watching you, you know. So I try to use social media as a journal. You know, I try to use it as just going on there and talking about, like, you know, if you're going through something and feeling something, you know, I try to use it as that, because I think nowadays it's just all the perfect picture, the perfect angle, the perfect breakfast. You know, my dog doesn't poop in the house. He only poops at this tree. You know, like there's no realness to it anymore. And I think that now it's just put a constant just pressure on everybody to feel like they have to upkeep this perfect life.
Yeah.
When it's not the case at all.
Yeah.
You know? And I think if people shared real experiences and shared just a lot more real stuff, I think the world would be a lot closer. But I think now it's just everybody's competing with one another.
Yeah. It almost, just the way you said that, almost makes me feel like people have become the most unfamous celebrities.
Yes.
Like, we, back in the day, you know, 10, 20 years ago, people were like, oh, I want to be the next Brad Pitt. But then people are like, I just don't want to have that kind of pressure and the paparazzi all the time. But now it's like we're our own paparazzi, and we have to, like, we put ourselves through this pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. I was watching somebody last night. They got their food, and they're just, the first thing they do is they're taking a picture of it. And it's just, for me, like, I get it. It's cool. Maybe it's a big night for you, so I try not to jump to the judgment. Maybe it's a big night for you. Never ate something this nice, whatever. But 9 out of 10 times, it's like, man, just be in the moment.
Right.
You know, like, at the end of the day, it's just sushi. We're just taking pictures of sushi here. Yeah. It's cool. Like, I get it. Share your meal, but also, like, you know, enjoy the moment with those 3 or 4 people you're at the table with. Because guess what? One of them could pass away on the way home. Yeah. That's how I try to look at it now, you know, so. Yeah.
Well, there was an artist, I can't remember who it was, but they were just telling people, like, stop filming me while you're here. Like, this is a concert you came to.
Right.
Have the experience yourself with other people, with me.
Yeah.
And don't worry about, like, capturing it for later, or sharing it for other people, or, you know, because, I mean, there's
so much idolism.
Yeah. But I used to be the worst when it came to taking, and maybe it'd be seen as good now, I guess, maybe, but I used to be the worst at taking pictures and capturing moments. But also in my head, I have this, like, idealization now, like my own imagination can remember it. Solid. Yeah.
Right.
So it's so kind of different how back then I thought about it more as like this bad thing. And now I'm thinking, like, but was it bad? Because now I kind of have this, my own, like, I can tell people about it now. I'm just not like, oh, check out the pictures.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think some people share their pictures to share the journey with some people. And I think some people like that because they feel they'll never get to do that. So they get to live through it. I'm just one of those people too. Like, I do take pictures, you know, and I got to get better at that. Like, if I see something cool, I'm like, pop, 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 pop. But I wish I would have took time to really just look at it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Rather than look at it on my phone. But yeah, I agree with you on that too.
Yeah. It's funny how, like, we do kind of live through social media and we live through our pictures and videos, but at the same time, we still have that inner desire to go to somewhere. Like, we could easily Google Mount Rushmore, the Grand Canyon, but we still have that desire to go there.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the unknown. I think it's, you know, like, you only get a certain amount of time here on this earth anyways. Like, let's go see some stuff, you know? I think that's really cool. But yeah, and back to the social media thing too, is what I was saying is, I just think too many people are idols nowadays. You know, I was sitting there thinking the other day, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, but everybody was reposting C-Bum's baby news. And I personally don't know C-Bum. I know he's the greatest classic physique guy of all time, right? But everybody's resharing, this is great news, this is this, and that. And I sat there thinking, like, you think he's going to reshare a post of you when you're announcing that you're having a baby?
Right.
Like, at the end of the day, like, does he care really? Like, I'm sure he's great by his fans. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, we're all resharing these posts, tagging C-Bum in hopes that we get on his story. That are we really congratulating C-Bum for his baby, or are we just constantly resharing stuff in hopes to get C-Bum's attention?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And for me, it's like, he's not going to share me having my first son on his story. I follow him.
Yeah.
He don't even follow you, and you're sharing that stuff. But then we have these close local friends that, are going through stuff or whatever, and we're not taking time to share their stories.
Yeah.
So I just think there's too much idle. At the end of the day, like, he's just a man.
Yeah. He's a guy that is good at something, which is great.
Right.
But he's just another guy. He just happens to have a lot of people who knows who he is.
He is, man.
But
so
it is interesting. It's kind of weird to think about, like,
sports idols die all the time, and we talk about them, or actors, we talk about them for 3-4 weeks, but we don't talk about the little kid who just got killed in a car crash 2 weeks ago. So it's like, for me, it's just this whole, like, we carry on and on. We talked about Dale Earnhardt Jr. Dale Earnhardt, when he died in the NASCAR thing, forever. But we have military people dying every day. We have, we have a teacher that maybe died on the way to work.
Yeah.
So it's just that whole reality of thing of like, everybody's going through this stuff in life, but we only tend to recognize the idols.
Yeah.
So
I wonder if it's something about humans, though, that, like, we want like this thing to look up to, and we want this thing to
feel a part of something.
Yeah, but I think we also want to, like, so many people have obviously lost touch with, like, religion.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it's like if it's this reach of, like, this is what the blueprint is. This is what it should look like. He has the perfect this. He has the perfect family. He has the new thing. He has, so I wonder if it's just like people almost living vicariously through that person. I don't know. It's just, it seems so interesting because we've always idolized people, right? You look back even in the Bible, and it was like, don't create false gods and don't do all this stuff. But, it's just, there's always been a need to almost have something to
talk about.
Yeah. I think that's a big part of it.
People just want something to talk about, man.
Yeah.
I can't even watch ESPN without hearing about Taylor Swift. Hey, yeah. I just want to check on the scores,
Yeah.
For me, but it's just this huge thing now, and I'm just like, now they're making this thing of, the Chiefs are 5-0 and Taylor Swift's at the game, and this, and it's just, nowadays it's just so much of just but people just, man, people are drawn to news.
Yeah.
People are drawn to news, man.
Yeah.
Just like how that thing went with Derek and at Olympia and all that stuff. Like, people are just drawn to it. But guess what? It fades out. Nobody's talking about it 2 weeks later.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. There's always something new, and with social media, there's something new every time you hit refresh. So it's
crazy, ain't it?
Gives us a new little hit.
It does. It gives you something. Social media is cool and it's on, but also it's like, did they really just post that? Did they really just say that? It's crazy.
Yeah. And
you'll go back and that story will be gone. It'll say story deleted.
Yeah. Right. Either it's gone, deleted, or it's just gone. It's off of the map.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, okay, old news now.
Yeah.
So I think it's we have to, like, understand that, maybe even throwing it back to the world of bodybuilding. Like, are you willing to like sacrifice yourself for maybe that 15, used to be 15 minutes, maybe now 15 seconds of fame? So I think doing,
even
like,
for that.
Yeah, like being
$40,000.
Yeah, like, is it really worth that to go too far?
Right.
So I think that maybe is a good lesson in that.
I think the people that are sacrificing it, it's not for the money. It's for just, I want to be the best. Because what is it? Is it classic? It's 40,000 now.
I think so.
And it's but bodybuilding got like 400K.
Yeah, I think that's right too.
And C-Bum pulls so much in for that sport. That's what's crazy. Most of those people are there to watch him. Let's be real here.
Yeah.
Like, he's got the energy drinks. He's made the sport relevant again.
Yeah.
From the average person who doesn't understand the bodybuilding side and all that stuff, like, he's made just classic, just when it comes to the young population, huge. And he's putting himself through that. But you can look at it for that, but he also, look at the brand he's built.
Right.
Right. That $40,000, he's not worried about that.
Yeah.
He's just worried about being, 5-6 time, whatever. So
yeah.
For me, it's not worth it.
It's all about, finding out
You know?
what that is for you.
Yep.
So many people do it for so many different reasons. And I think that's one of the reasons that I really think bodybuilding is interesting is because you can do it for all these different reasons, but you can still step on stage with people who are doing it for some other reason. So
yeah, I was telling Austin Brown that the other day. I told him, I talk to him every now and then. I said, bodybuilding gives you so much more than just the stage, cool people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It presented this podcast moment with me and you. That's how I look at it, So now, I know you now, right? So I would have never known you if it wasn't for that. So I think if you look at that aspect of what it given you and the knowledge that it given me to create a supplement company, the knowledge that all these cool people I've met now, at the end of the day, the trophy isn't really that impressive. It's all the stuff that gives to you in advance.
For sure. Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the power of going and doing something, like
Right.
putting yourself, we talked about it a lot, but the passion, like what are you passionate about? And if you do that and you do it for the right reasons and you follow through with it, you're going to meet people, you're going to have opportunities. And like you said, it's the supplements, it's the podcast, it's the things it's the people you meet that you never would have without it. So,
Yeah, because you meet a lot of positive people along the way that can invest.
Yeah.
That's, there's stuff that you could teach me that I may not apply to my life right now, like what stuff I've took from this podcast. So, there's stuff to think about, and there's a lot of opportunity out there if you approach it in a positive mindset.
for sure. Yeah. And I think that's a great way to end the podcast right there is just go and do something, approach it with a positive mindset, and
that's what I
good
say.
things will happen.
Viking mentality. That's what I preach about. By the way, it's coming soon. But that's what it is. Go out and conquer whatever it is. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is, approach it with a Viking mentality, man, and just go out and conquer that. It doesn't matter what it is. That's what I was saying. Like if it's real estate, this, and that, approach it, conquer it, better yourself, invest in people. That's the only way to do it, man.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Well, it was great getting to chat with you. I really appreciate you coming
this,
on.
man. It was fun.
100%.
Cool.
And if you want to share anything before you head out, any social media, website, anything.
I do have my supplement company, coming out right now, which is the Viking Mentality. I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited about the brand because it's just about really the whole thing is that it's about bringing in more than just bodybuilding. It's about bringing in people who just are conquering in life. I want to reach out to those people who they're in the gym, but they're real estate agents, they're nurses, they're doctors, they're school bus drivers, whatever it is, and really bring that, whatever you do in life, as long as you're passionate about it, just approach with that Viking mentality, conquer it. Let's set little goals, go out and conquer it. So I'm just trying to bring something bigger to the sport when it comes to team-oriented and really sharing people's journeys. So
it's awesome.
That's it. Yes, sir.
Good deal. Well, like I said, I really appreciate you coming in. It was great.
I appreciate you having me.
Thanks.
Yes, sir. Awesome.
If you're tired of searching for a coach or trainer, somebody who knows what they're talking about and has experience, make sure you go check out the new Coach's Corner on weightroompodcast.com. You can find quality, qualified coaches to help you achieve your goals, whether that's in bodybuilding or just general fitness. Stop wasting time and start achieving your goals today. The link to the Coach's Corner is down in the description below.